Hey everybody, Happy New Year. I wanted to do my first video of the year about a watch that's very special to me. This is an Omega Seamaster reference number 2230.50. This is part of the sword hand subcategory of Seamasters from the early 2000s. As you can see here, this watch is very similar to the more well-known 2254.50, which is shown here on the right. It shares almost all the same dimensions. They're both 41 millimeters in width, case width, 20 millimeter lug width. The 2230 is slightly thicker than the 2254, and that is directly as a result of the bezel, or specifically the bezel insert. The bezel insert on the 2230, which looks like regular old steel or metal, is actually 18 karat white gold, and that's something that surprised me when I had first heard about this watch a long time ago. I think it's interesting and sort of a nice thing to know that you have that precious metal on this watch, while also, keeping the watch sort of under the radar and not being too flashy. I don't think most people would recognize that as gold. 2254 here has the painted black aluminum bezel insert, which is quite beautiful as well. So another key difference here with the 2230 is the dial. If you notice, as I move the watch, the dial on 2230 has applied indices. Those hour markers are actually small applied bits of metal filled with Lume, quite similar to this SMPC, which I'm showing here on the right. That's a key difference, key sort of development in the Seamasters, which continues to this day. All current Seamasters, as far as I'm aware, have applied indices, but the 2230.50 was one of the earlier ones to do so. And the effect you get with that is it looks a little bit like a higher end watch. I love the painted dial on the regular 2254.50. I think it's very effective at what it's supposed to do. It's very legible, it's durable, there's nothing wrong with it. But the applied indices here with the bit of metal, polished metal framing around the Lume really elevates the look of the watch. Hard to honestly capture it on camera, but in person it's very noticeable and sort of lifts the watch into at least looking like a sort of a higher tier watch. Now this bezel insert, again, as I said, it's 18 karat white gold. It is nice to look at. It is somewhat reminiscent of a Rolex Yachtmaster. It even reminds me of the current Omega Seamaster Necton edition, although that bezel is titanium, but you sort of have the same effect with the raised relief numbers in the bezel. One negative about this that you should be aware of is that I believe these bezels are very expensive to replace. So you see a lot of these pre-owned with some pretty heavy wear to the bezel, and as mine has here, the aluminum bezel insert on 2254 is much less expensive to change. I also feel it's somewhat less prone to damage because there's really nothing sticking out of the bezel, unlike the 2230. So here you can see what I meant about the difference in thickness. The bezel on the 2230, the actual bezel, not the insert, is thicker to accommodate the extra thickness of that insert, being the white gold insert. It does add a little bit of weight to the watch as well, and the weight is right at the top of the case. So it is a noticeable difference in weight between the two. If a lower weight, slightly slimmer watch matters to you, you probably like the 2254 more for that reason. It is not a big difference. I don't mind it, especially knowing that the watch has that really nice sort of upgrade on it. But other than those differences, you're looking at pretty much the same watch. And it's really interesting to me that while prices for the 2254 keep going higher and higher, the 2230 with these two major enhancements, the dial and the bezel, pretty much are priced very close to 2254 50s, and in some cases even less, which is really interesting to me. And it's sort of a case of a watch, one watch being well known and one sort of not having the same level of following among collectors. So even the bracelets are the same. They're the quote-unquote speedy style bracelet. Mine has a lot of wear, but those skinnier portions in the center of the bracelet are typically highly polished, while the rest has a brush finish. See, it's a different bracelet from this SMPC, which has the bond style. Bracelets are fully interchangeable. If you can swap between any of these 41mm Seamasters, and even between these older ones and the SMPC. And so if you like a bond bracelet more, you can put it on this watch. And in fact, there is a very similar watch to this 2230 that comes with a bond style bracelet, and I believe that one is reference number 2533.50. That it has a slightly different dial, does not have applied indices, and has a little bit less text on the dial, with just the words America's Cup on the bottom. That watch actually came before the 2230-50, if I'm not mistaken. It's quite nice. If you don't really care about the applied indices, that's a good choice too. So here, as you can tell, I really like this watch, seeing that there's two of them here. I just wanted to show you this one because another great feature of this watch is that it is really an excellent choice to pair with NATO nylon straps. The 2254-50 having the black bezel can somewhat limit you in that regard. But here, the 2230-50, there's really no color on this watch other than the tip of the seconds hand, which is a very, very tiny amount of red. So the lack of color and the metallic bezel, I find, make for a watch that is very easy to throw onto basically almost any strap, especially NATO Zulu nylon straps like the one shown here. And I think the watch just looks very good with these types of straps. And if you see my other videos, I wear most of my watches on nylon straps, and just for the comfort and the utility of it. So here it is on the wrist. Again, I think it's a perfect watch to wear on this type of strap. It would also probably work very well with mesh. I find generally metallic bezel watches seem to go well with mesh. Would like to show that maybe in a future video. I'll try to put this watch on mesh. And here it is on its regular bracelet. The bracelet is absolutely beautiful. Like I said, I just wear the watches like this on nylon because it's extra comfortable and very good for doing activities, and you're also not putting wear on the bracelet when you don't need to. So I like to keep the bracelet safe and have the watch on the nylon strap. It's a watch that really deserves a lot more attention than it gets. That's basically the bottom line, especially given the direction that Omega's gone and the current state of prices for these watches. I think these really generally remain a steal on the secondhand market. They do seem to be getting rarer, but they are still available. You can find them. Here's a Lume shot. All these sword hand Seamasters have really beautiful Lume thanks to the large indices on the dial. This is the Lume after just a few seconds of exposure to a bright light. How long the Lume lasts will vary, but it generally will last a while, especially if the watch has been in light for some time. But even if the Lume is faded, thanks to how large the indices are and the amount of Lume on the hands, you can generally still make good use of the dial, even in dark conditions, for a couple hours after the watch has seen the light. So here I'm going to show you the two side by side, the 2230-50 on the left, the 2254-50 on the right, so you can see how they look. If I was judging on pure aesthetics and basically not giving any points for the sort of upgraded enhanced features on the 2230, I would have to say, despite my love for the 2230, the 2254 is probably the better looking watch. I think the black bezel and black dial matching together really makes for a completely harmonious look. That's not to say 2230 is a bad looking watch. I'm just trying to be extra critical, focusing only on the appearance. I would probably have to give that to the 2254. But again, given how much 2254s are in demand and the relatively weaker demand for the 2230, I would definitely look to a 2230 if I'm interested, if I was looking to add something like this to a collection. Here is another side-by-side with the more modern SMPC. Again, these are somewhat different looking, but they do share the fact that they both have applied indices. I would really love to see Omega do something where they put on a glossy dial but keep the shape of the indices of the 2230, sort of mixing the features between these two watches, and maybe using a ceramic bezel insert. I think that could be quite a beautiful watch. One can hope to see if Omega is inclined to do something like that, but I would definitely be a buyer if that were the case. And yeah, that's about it about this watch. I am a big fan. I don't see a lot of people talking about it, especially relative to some of the other Seamaster models. And I think if you are in any way, shape, or form interested in the 2254, or even if you're interested in the newer Seamasters, the current generation, especially the Necton, as I mentioned, I think this is a great watch to consider. And I hope to see a lot more people get interested in this watch. Let me know what you think. I'm curious to hear other people's opinions about this watch. Like I said, I think it's underappreciated. I think it's got a lot going for it, and a wonderful addition to any Omega collection.